Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanyuin Academy series, and this is English Nerd. So you probably know, if you've been around the channel for the last few weeks, that my first audiobook has just come out, and I am over the moon. I think my narrator, Jake Rowell, is just fabulous, and so if you go on Audible, if you go on Chirp or Kobo or wherever you get your audiobooks, you'll be able to find the first book in the Tanyuin Academy series. Throughout 2022, I'm going to get the other two done as well, so Into the Unreal and Kingdoms on Fire, and they all will be out in the next few months. So in honor of that huge deal, I wanted to give you a countdown of my favorite young adult audiobooks that I have ever listened to. And I was looking back at all the ones that I have listened to, and it was kind of hard to decide, so this might not be a definitive list, but it's awfully good. So here are my top 10 YA audiobooks. I'm going to start with a couple honorable mentions. One honorable mention is Legendary from the Caraval series. I really enjoyed this one. It was my favorite in the series. I've listened to the original Caraval trilogy and Once Upon a Broken Heart as well. And Legendary was definitely my favorite. The narrator is somebody who does a lot of what I listen to, and I really enjoy her narrative style, and the story was engaging. So that was a fun one. The other honorable mention, and people are probably going to get upset that this is only an honorable mention, but for me it was, is Illuminae. The J. Kristoff, Amie Kaufman. It's almost a found footage compilation if you haven't read it before. It's sci-fi, and so I guess this would be sci-fi fantasy. I regret nothing. It took me a while to get into, just because it is a found footage format, and so you have different transcripts of interviews, you have descriptions of video, you have countdown clocks, you have different logs, and it's a full cast. The cast is outstanding, and by the end I was really into it. The stakes just get higher and higher, and it gets more and more stressful, but it's well put together. I think the character of Aiden, the AI in particular, is really compelling throughout kind of how they change. Okay, so those are my two honorable mentions. Going up from 10 then. I would put 10 as a book that I just finished a couple days ago, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper. That is just a really fun YA historical mystery, of course, based on the Jack the Ripper murders in London in the late 1800s. And it follows a girl named Audrey Rose Wadsworth as she tries to uncover the mystery of what happened to these women. Why were they murdered, and what connection it has to the people that she knows, because she starts to make these different uncomfortable connections and wants to get to the bottom of the truth. I thought it was a really engaging story. It placed me right in that time period, which I enjoy. It was very atmospheric. It had lots of throwbacks to things like Sherlock Holmes, and so anyway, that was a really fun one. I would highly recommend it. The ending was a little bit shaky, but everything else was so good that I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads anyway. So that is number 10 for me. Number 9, I have my little list here. By the way, morning light is great and all, but sometimes it's a little hard to film, so just ignore all this extra special light. I can't really get rid of it very easily. All right, so number 9 would be Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's narrated by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which was one of the selling points for me to try it. I'd had it recommended to me in general, but that's when I decided to really give it a shot. It's a fairly short book. It's a coming-of-age story about these two boys in New Mexico in the 1980s. And both that setting and that time period are not ones that I tend to gravitate toward. But it was so well written. It was so simple yet powerful, and of course very well narrated as well. Lin-Manuel Miranda has a distinct voice, as I'm sure many of you out there know, but it fit really well with this story of these two boys. And so that would be number 9. Really excellent audiobook, and again fairly short compared to a lot of the others on this list. Okay, number 8 would be it's hard to actually put these in an order. I wrote down all of them, and I can tell that the ones I wrote down first should belong more at the top of the list, but it's hard to do this. I'll just go with number 8 is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. The narrator for this YA fantasy mystery romance Harry Potter remake is just fantastic. It's 2 points of view. Well, actually, it's more than 2 points of view, but 2 main points of view. You have Simon Snow and you have Baz Pitch, and his Baz voice was just a delight to listen to. I really, really enjoyed the snarkiness, just the kind of low tenor of the voice. And so the story is kind of an insane Harry Potter-ish romp, but a bit more edgy, I guess, sort of grown up, but it ended up being so much more fun than I anticipated. I loved the first one. The second and third ones really disappointed me. So if you, the first one, Carry On, in the Simon Snow trilogy, can stand on its own. Personally, I would recommend that you just listen to the first one, enjoy the heck out of it, and if you want some random fan fiction about the characters that really doesn't go anywhere, you can continue with the other two. But the first one is really a delight. It was great to listen to. Loved that narrator. All right, number 7 then would be Aurora Rising, which is another Amie Kaufman, J. Kristoff sci-fi mashup. And that one is another full cast, or if not full cast, it just has a lot of points of view, and each one has a different narrator. I loved all the narrators except, I know this is going to be terrible, except for Ari, who is Aurora, the character in the title. I've heard her in a few different audiobooks, and her voice is just not really my favorite, but everybody else I absolutely loved. I thought they fit really well into this super fast-paced adventure story about a group of teenagers who essentially figure out that the universe is in jeopardy and hardly anybody can do anything about it except for them. And so they do their best to kind of jump in headfirst and run into all these dangers. And it was one of my favorite reads of the year. So that one was a blast. Highly recommend. The rest of the series is also good. I'm in the middle of the final book, Aurora's End, and that one is not really hitting the spot yet, but I haven't finished it. So if they nail the ending, then all is forgiven. But the second book was outstanding as well. So enjoy that. Okay, we're on to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're on to number 6. 6 in my countdown. And that would be Champion in the Legend series by Marie Lu. I've chosen the final book because she did nail the ending. The whole series is fabulous. Legend, Champion, and I hate the titles though. The titles are so generic that it's difficult to remember what they are. But it's a dystopian story about an outlaw boy and a girl who's trained as essentially a special forces kind of person. They're both really brilliant, and they end up teaming up to take down this greater threat. There's a love story. It's really well done, and both narrators, it's from both of their points of view, both narrators just did an outstanding job. So I was practically in tears by the end, and that's something that I really enjoy. So there you go, number 6. All right, number 5. Number 5, we're starting to be into books that I own now. Oh, right, I forgot. I do own Carry On. So number 5 would be Lockwood and Company, the first book, The Screaming Staircase. It's middle grade technically, but I'm going to count it in my YA countdown because it felt YA, and it had some creepy aspects to it. One downside to listening to the Lockwood & Co. books is that they switch narrators almost every book, and that was pretty jarring. There are 5 books in all, and I think 3 narrators. The first 3 books have 3 different narrators who do the voices very differently, and that was super frustrating, but I particularly enjoyed the first narrator and the first story. It got me absolutely hooked. I ended up buying all 5 books after I listened to the series, and that's not something that I do all that often. It just was so fun. So it is technically middle grade, and it's kind of an alternate history set in London, and there's a ghost outbreak. Nobody quite knows why there are so many of these dangerous ghosts around, but precautions have been taken throughout the society, and children who are the ones who are able to see and hear the ghosts are the ones tasked with disposing of them and making London safer for the adults. So the characters are absolutely charming. Loved it. Okay, then next up, I'm going to put the Lunar Chronicles. The Lunar Chronicles are some of my just all-time favorite books at this point. Marissa Meyer is the writer. She's fabulous, particularly in this series. Cinder, the first book in the series, was all right. Scarlet was a little bit better. Cress was amazing, and by the time I got to Winter, I was just beside myself. It was so good. The narrator really makes the characters come to life. Her Aiko voice is just fabulous. So the Lunar Chronicles is another sci-fi series that retells fairy tales very loosely. So Cinder very loosely retells Cinderella. Scarlet retells Little Red Riding Hood. Rapunzel is book 3, and Snow White is book 4. But it's easy to forget that they are retellings because they take on an absolute life of their own. So yeah, I would so highly recommend this series if you like YA at all. Man or woman, guy or girl, like try this series. It has Star Wars vibes and just general awesomeness. Okay, next up, I'm going to say, all right, you have to listen to this. If you like anything that resembles this style of YA, then you have to listen to this audiobook. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. One of my favorite audiobook narrator of all time is Steve West. He has the dreamiest voice you could possibly imagine, and he does characters so well too. It's not just the tenor of his voice, but he acts better than almost any other narrator I've heard. Strange the Dreamer is one of his best works, I think. So again, this is YA fantasy. It's set in a completely different place. There's no alternate history element to it. There's no sci-fi element. It's about a junior librarian who is obsessed with this lost city that he used to know the name of, but then all of a sudden it's as though the memory of it got wiped from the earth, and he's been looking ever since for information about this city, and he finally gets the chance to go on this expedition to the fabled city of his dreams, and it ends up being such a surprising, wild, magical ride. It's a duology. I like the first one, Strange the Dreamer, better than Muse of Nightmares, which is the second book, but they're both really, really good. Okay, the number two spot is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, which is book 1 of the Raven Cycle. All the Raven Cycle books are quite good. There's a narrative hiccup, I think, in the second book. One of the voices that the man chose for the characters I thought was kind of weird. But other than that, I see why the narrator has won awards. You can tell just from the way that he says the number of the chapter, which character is going to be the primary character in that chapter, which is just astonishing. It's only tiny differences between all the different characters, and yet it's clear at all times who is talking, what they're feeling. I have no idea how he accomplished that. So The Raven Boys is, once again, young adult fantasy, but it's set in our time. It's more like magical realism. Really, there are magical elements to what happens in the real world, and it just kind of is like our own world, but cracked open with all of its really bizarre possibilities. I didn't think I would end up liking the series so much. The first couple of chapters were not what I would normally read, at least at the time when I started it. It was creepy, and I just didn't know. But by the end, it was one of my new favorite books. Okay, and then in the number 1 spot, audiobook wise, we have The Scorpio Races, once again by Maggie Stiefvater. She's hit or miss as an author, but when she's good, she is really, really good. And not only is The Scorpio Races a surprisingly excellent book that I've talked about on this channel already. You can take a look at the unboxing of the 10th anniversary special edition and all of that. But the audio book of The Scorpio Races is so gripping and so beautiful. It's dual narrator, and I loved both voices so tremendously that by the time I got to the end of this standalone book, I just was in awe of what happened. I've talked to other people who have listened to The Scorpio Races, and they just binged it. They figured out a way to just sort of, clean and work out and do things that you could listen while you were doing it, just because it was such a beautiful and gripping audio story. So there you go. Those are my top 10 young adult fantasy and sci-fi audiobook recommendations. And again, one that probably deserves to be on this list, but that I didn't put on, just trying to be good, is Firian Rising. It is such a wonderful audiobook. Jake Ruddle does the voices so excellently, and I felt like it just got better and better. I can't wait to hear Into the Unreal and Kingdoms on Fire. I think he's just going to knock it out of the park. So check this out. If you don't have it through your library, those audiobooks, then definitely request it. There's no, or you can just, get it wherever you would normally get audio. I just am a big fan of library audiobooks. All right, that is it for today. Please check these out. You will not regret it. If by some miracle you do not like one, you are going to fall in love with another one. So, yeah, that's all. I am so grateful that I started listening to audiobooks, because I feel like they've changed my life for the better and have opened up this new world of reading that I had not experienced before. All right, that's it. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness. Get the Firian Rising audiobook, and I'll see you next Monday.